Hello everybody, I am Tynan Sylvester, and this is RimWorld Alpha 9, Tales of Drunkness. So let's get right into it. First thing I'm going to show you is the shields, personal shields. This is something that's designed to make melee combat a bit more rewarding. As you can see, the melee guys start out with these spherical shields that they have wrapped around themselves, energy shields, which will absorb a few rounds of gunfire before eventually bursting. Now, the shields will take any damage from a distant source, and they also prevent shooting back out, so they're pretty much exclusively useful for melee fighters. And they serve the purpose of allowing the melee fighter to get in close to someone with a ranged weapon. Now, shields do have different quality levels, like weapons, so a higher quality shield will charge faster and have a higher maximum energy. There are group attacks of enemies all with shields and melee weapons, so you're going to have to deal with groups of guys charging your gun lines with shields and see if you can take them down first. Next up, we have beer brewing. It wouldn't be a management game if people couldn't get incredibly drunk here, so let's just set up a brewing beer bill, pump up the numbers there, and as with any good cooking show, I've got some already laid out here. There, so you can see the stacks of beer. Now, the beer is brewed from hop plants, which are there on the left, and then he takes some hops and he brings it up to brew. And then Rico, our empath, is going to take 25 hops and turn them into 5 new beers. So that's how the beer production system works, but let's look at the consumption. So what I'm going to do is just force binging mental breaks on people. Binging is something that can happen to anybody if they're really stressed out, or to certain colonists with specific traits related to alcohol, who will just randomly go on binges sometimes. And essentially when they're binging, you lose control of them and they just focus on getting as drunk as they can before passing out or going to bed. So here I'm just going to throw every colonist into a binging situation. And you can see all their names turn green to indicate that. And clicking on one, we can see that Valentina here is inebriated, as is Toon, with the warm category. So there's different levels of inebriation in the game. Being warm is just, having had one drink, say, and it just barely affects manipulation, makes the person a little bit happier. So their regular alcohol consumption can actually keep their mood up just by keeping them warm on and off. Kind of like a sailing ship, 17th century sailing ship where the sailors are drunk all the time, just a little bit. However, if they're binging, they can move up the scale. Here you see they're getting tipsy and then drunk, which has a plus 20 mood bonus, but affects their ability to do anything by 35%. So they'll work slower, they'll move slower. They're not super effective at pretty much any actual task when they're drunk, but they tend to be quite happy. So they're just going to keep getting drunk here. They seem to be having their little party, grabbing beer after beer. Relax a little bit, grab another beer. Okay, so Valentina is now hammered, which is the highest stage of beer, and so is Riku, which is why he is vomiting all over the ground right there. Vomit is a new system, which just makes them blow chunks in certain situations, usually when they're sick. Crypto sleep sickness will do it, inebriation will do it, certain diseases will do it, food poisoning, which is another new thing, will do it. So Valentina is now vomiting, people are vomiting all over the place. That's going to make them hungry, of course it's going to make the place disgusting, and they're going to have to clean up this vomit. Just adds a little bit of funness. Oh, and Vass is a lightweight. Look, he's blackout drunk, and so he fell over, he's unconscious. I'm just going to delete this raider here. And, yeah, Vass is just laying there, can't move. So is Valentina, laying on top of him. Oh, Riku fell down, but he got back up a second later. So they're starting to lose themselves. Now let's skip forward a little bit and take a look at the ultimate result of this. You can see the next day, Toon here has a hangover, which is pounding and unpleasant, reduces his ability to accomplish things and makes him a little bit unhappy. So, you pay the piper later on. Okay, next up, let's look at the new stuff with art. Now, instead of having one sculpture type, now there are 3, small, large, and grand. I'm going to queue up a order for each one. And, just take a look at the config menu. You can see it's clarified somewhat here. You actually need 20 times the count of certain materials to make something. because, well, 1 count of silver is supposed to represent like a coin, while a block of stone is supposed to represent a big piece. So if you're going to make an item of the same volume, you need quite a few more counts of silver to do it. That's why that's there. So I've made the order. Diva is working on the small statue, or sculpture, and she's finished it. So let's see what she made. Now, it's poor quality. If you look at her skills, she's actually got 9 in artistic, so she should be doing pretty well, but there is a random element to the quality of art that comes out. So let's look at the actual art. It's called a Mirror 15. On this piece is an image of Capri Jackson striking Earth in a drop pod, with retro rockets firing dramatically on June 4th, 5500. There's a flame trail licking off the back of the pod. The image is bordered by dozens of weasels. The style is graffiti-like with Baroque elements. So that's pretty amusing. We can look at the stats for the piece of art and see that it has 15 beauty, which is not very great for art, but could be worse. So I'll set it to be installed there, and now we'll wait and fast forward through time until the large sculpture is complete. And we're almost there. Okay, now a couple days later, large sculpture is there. It's been created, and let's take a look at it. It's normal quality. It's called Shape Number 1. And the artistic description is, this carving is shaped like Nanami Maddox touching down in a drop pod on May 1st, 5500. She is strapped in with her eyes closed, totally helpless. The scene seems to take place on the outskirts of a town. The image seems to express destruction. Now, these are both pieces of art created about the same kind of event, which is someone touching down at a drop pod, because this is a fairly new colony and not too much has happened. But when more things happen, they get recorded into a hidden database. They're essentially remembered by your colonists, who will then make art about them. So we'll address that more a bit later. For now, I'll show you how you can actually inspect beauty. Here I've turned on the beauty inspection tool, and you can see if you mouse over a spot, it'll show you everything that's beauty relevant to a colonist who is standing at that spot. And it also shows you the average of all of them, which is really the final score. So if you're standing here, you're going to notice all this concrete, which is ugly, at -2 each, but a piece of art might be nice. So here you can see the geothermal plant is really ugly, and the ground here is ugly. Sand is neutral. Crops have kind of a nice effect. And yeah, that's beauty inspection. So moving on, back to the tails. Here I'm going to actually create some tails just by spawning some enemies and killing them. And this is going to create memories for your colonists about fighting and killing people and capturing people. And then later on, when they create art, it's actually going to be based on what happened before. So if someone was set on fire, or someone vomited, or someone was murdered, or captured, or recruited, or this big list of events can all produce pieces of art describing that event or depicting that event. And over time, what you're going to build up is a sort of history of your colony, and your artists are going to express that. So skipping forward to see the grand sculpture, here's Dixon finally completing this giant grand sculpture after several days. It's huge, but he's carrying it to the stockpile. So up it goes, and let's take a look at it. It's poor quality because it's not very good. It's called Quietude for Barrel, and the description is, on this work is a representation of Heifer Dave Dewey capturing Benjamin Ben Frick as he writhes on the ground on June 2nd, 5500. Diva is laughing as tears well up in Ben's eyes. The blocky style of the central scene clashes with the expressionistic depiction of the background. The scene seems to take place in the outskirts of a town. Now, just to give you some examples of some of the additional art that we have, I'm just going to spawn some sculptures here, and they'll all get randomly generated art attached to them. And then we can take a look at what they say. This piece represents Worst Manny Speent tying Alina Dixon's hands with obvious pleasure on June 5th, 5500. Dixon is snarling with the fury of defeat. The smiling head of a carpenter watches over all. The work suggests the concept of growth. So however you want to interpret that. And if your colony is all about people constantly vomiting or getting drunk or getting set on fire, then that's what your art's going to be about too. So, don't complain to me if all your sculptures are of people vomiting all over the place, because they're carving what they're seeing, And finally, there's also a concept of art without a tail attached. So if an enemy arrives with, you know, an engraved gun or sword or something, it can also have art on it. But it won't be about the colony, of course, so they just get their own art descriptions. Here's the debug output with some of them. So there's also age in the game. Age has always been around, but now it actually matters because people will get age-related illnesses as they get older or if they spawn old. So here's Payne the Inventor's 61 years old. However, he has a chronological age of 150 because when you have crypto sleep, as in this universe, you're essentially in stasis, you know, for long-term storage or if you're traveling between the stars. And so you can be getting older in some sense, but you're not biologically aging, which is why everyone has 2 ages in the game. Now, the biological age is the one that we're familiar with, but they can also have hundreds or thousands of years of crypto sleep behind them too, so their chronological age will be much older. And as they get older, biologically, they'll get permanent illnesses that slow them down. I also want to show you some of the new pawn statistics that we have. You can look at the stats inspector, of course, and see that a number of additional things have been made viewable here, and there's some new mechanics exposed here. The one I want to really show you is surgery success chance at the bottom there. Yeah, so when they do surgery, now there's a chance that it'll fail, and it can fail in a mild way or in a catastrophic way, and they can end up not doing what they were trying to do with the surgery, or even hurt the person they were trying to cure, and so forth. Here's a crowd pleaser. A lot of people have asked about rescuing neutral characters. Before, you could only capture them, but now you have the option of actually just rescuing someone who's from a neutral faction and putting them in bed and healing them up and letting them go without capturing them. Because capturing would piss off their faction, but if you want, you can get a bonus to their faction if you find someone wounded. And yeah, that's pretty much it for RimWorld Alpha 9. There are a ton of other improvements that have been added, which I didn't mention. You can read the entire change list at ludion.com. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you like the game. Come let us know what you think on the forums. I tweet at TynanSylvester. And you should also check out my book, in case you didn't know. I wrote a game design book a couple of years ago before I started this project. But if you're interested in game mechanics and game design and the thought processes and methodology that go into them, not in terms of programming, but in terms of the actual predicting player psychology, creating game mechanics and interfaces, and everything that's not writing code, but is more about deciding which code to write, then you might want to check it out. It is a book for practitioners, but it's also written in a way that's deliberately designed to be readable by anyone with even a normal level of interest in just playing games themselves. There you go. That's my plug. Check out the book. It's called Designing Games. Here's the link. And I will see you guys next time.